Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 365 of the Board Game Barrage podcast. That's one podcast for every day of the year. Start in whichever year you feel.
Can't be every fourth year.
Can't be a leap year. Yeah.
Be careful.
So pick a non-leap year. January 1st, you listen to one episode of the podcast.
Didn't we skip one just as like a joke once?
Nope.
How dare you?
That never happened.
I don't know. Never happened.
That was a real question.
Okay. No. There are 365 canonical episodes. Actually, there are probably a little bit. Yeah.
This week on the show, we are approaching rapidly Gen Con, which is a great show that we don't go to anymore. But we wish we could. It's too hot. It's too hot. It's too far away.
There?
Well, I guess, Mark,
My God. I'll take anywhere else. I'm living in the 110s right now. I'll take. What is Indianapolis going to do to me on the heat level?
It's funny. I am off. The studio has like a closure over that week for like a wellness break, and I was very tempted for a second to be like, maybe I'll just go to Gen Con. Like, I might just. I'm probably not going to go, but the thought entered my mind. But regardless, if you are going to Gen Con, we're here to tell you what games you should be looking out for. Don't pay attention to what anyone else is telling you. They're not your friends in that convention hall. We're your friends. We'll tell you what games to be playing. But before we do that, we're going to be talking about the games that we've been playing recently. And this week, those games are Koinobori.
You got it.
Compania and Mood Swings. Mark.
So, two games that aren't real words.
Yeah, exactly.
Or are they puns?
Two nonsense words.
How dare you?
Are these just non-English words? That I'm
these are non-English words. These are not.
No.
You're walking a very.
Koinobori, unfortunately, yes, is just Japanese, I believe.
I thought it was.
Why'd you say unfortunately?
Well, unfortunately,
Nealon.
Unfortunately for Nealon.
Unfortunately for Nealon.
I have not said. Let the record show. I have not said anything potentially racist.
Jeez, Nealon.
Compania, I'm pretty sure, is just a made-up word, though. But Mark, tell us about Koinobori in your best Japanese accent. Go.
Oh, man. I shan't be doing that. But I will say that one of the reasons that I am reviewing this is I was looking at our 2025 Gen Con preview episode and noticed that one of us, I don't know who, I have a feeling it was Nealon, had Koinobori as one of their most anticipated games. Nealon, do you remember? One of you had it.
No, that doesn't sound like me.
Okay, well, somebody had it.
It must have been Callan.
It must have been Callan.
Yes. I looked at the page and I recognized it.
Okay, so yes. Okay, yes.
It is a Japanese small card game, so I think that's
true. That's true. What were you, Callan? I know it was super hot for you back then, so can you remind the listener why you were... Okay, no, I'm kidding. So, Koinobori is a card game designed by David Bernal. Doesn't sound Japanese, but that's okay. And published by Devere Games. So, Koinobori is a small card game. This takes place on Kodo no Hi, which is a Child's Day festival, I guess, or Children's Day festival. Anyway, the way it works is there are a number of cards that are going to have these windsock carp-shaped kites on them. The cards you have are going to have between 1 and 3 of these carp kites printed on them in one of, I think, 7 different colors it is. And so you are going to be, on your turn, you're going to have a hand of some limited number of cards. And on your turn, you're going to either draw more cards from this array of cards, or you're going to play a card or two. You're either going to play them to one of 5 different scoring columns, or you're going to play them to your own area. So let's talk about the columns. So these columns, again, there are 5 of them, and they go 5 cards high. So once a column has 5 cards on it, that column will score. And what you're trying to do when a column scores is, once the 5 cards have been placed, you're going to count which color, which suit of these carp kites is the most prevalent, and that one will be a scoring suit. So if on one of these flagpoles, the blue carp is visible 7 times, and the green is 3 times, and the pink is 1 time, well then what would I say, green?
I lost track myself.
Yeah, whatever color.
As you said that, I was like, are you going to remember which one had the most?
And I did not.
Amazing.
But basically whatever color shows up the most on these different poles is going to be the one that scores. there is an interesting sort of twist here where if two colors are tied for first, well, then they're both eliminated and whatever second place will score. And the degree to which it scores is however many times it appears. So as I said before, if green appears 7 times and it's the one that appears the most, then for that poll, for that scoring section, it will be 7 times green. Now, what are you multiplying that 7 by? Well, the other place you can play cards, as opposed to these scoring columns, is to your own private little board. And when you play cards there, you're going to play them face down. Now, what that is doing is it is going to be sort of like your stock, if you think about this as like a stock market game. So if, again, to go back to the previous example, if I had played a couple cards face down in my own pile that showed, say, a combined total of 3 green carps, and green carps are scoring, then I score 7 times the 3, and I got 21 points from that. But there are a couple twists here because, well, first, again, you're putting the cards that you're scoring, the stocks that you're investing in, basically, you're placing them face down so nobody knows what you're in for. But as you play them to your own pile, you're limited to playing 3, so you'll ever only play 3 cards to your own section. But as you play them, you are moving up your own sort of little flagpole, and instead of this being like a scoring flagpole like the ones I mentioned previously where you're playing into the middle of the board for all the players to see, every time you play a card to your private area, you are also increasing your abilities. So to start the game, you either, for your turn, you can draw a single card, you can play a single card, and your hand limit, I think, is 3. But as you take actions to place to your own section, those limits and that ability will increase. So later on in the game, you might be able to draw, 2 cards, and your hand limit might go up to 4, or you might be able to play 2 cards per turn. So as you take turns making your investments, you're also strengthening your abilities. And the tug of war there is you do want to strengthen your abilities. You want to make your actions as powerful and as efficient as possible. But if you do that too early, you're sort of investing in these colors that have not appeared yet on the board, and you're taking a major risk. Like if I play really quickly to maximize the strength of my actions, and I invest in yellow, for example, just to sort of rush it, well, now the board presumably is quite empty, and all of a sudden yellow may not show up, and despite my best actions, yellow may not appear in any of these scoring columns. As a further quick twist, when the game ends, which is when all 5 columns have been maxed out to 5 cards, you again are going to determine which color scores for each column. Every color that does not score scores a -3 multiplier. So if among, like, say, the 5 columns, blue doesn't score on any of them, well, now every carp that you have on your personal board that is blue, instead of scoring something, will score, in fact, negative points. So that is another reason that you wouldn't want to rush your sort of personal engine in lieu of having something established on the board in terms of what's going to pay off and what's not going to pay off. So I found Koinobori pleasant. When I read the rules, I was hoping that it would have a little more tension to it, and there is tension to it, again, in when are you going to increase your own efficiency versus when are you going to play cards. And there is like a tempo thing where as a column is close to completing, you can sort of like try to be the last person to place something to swing things. Like green may be leading in a certain column, and you might be hoping that the third place color is the one that wins, and you might be able to place a card at the end that makes it so the first place and second place ties and your color makes it through. So there is that cool like tempo considerations to do. One thing I didn't mention is that some of the cards you play, mostly the ones that only have 1 carp on them, a lot of them will have 2 or 3 carps of various colors, but the ones that generally I think have 1 carp on them will also have a power, which is like, you can use this card to cover another card, or you can use this card to do another card draw, stuff like that. That felt a little swingy in our game of it, and so that was less than great. It kind of added a craziness factor that some people might find appealing, but I found sort of like took away from the tension, because you sort of could plan things out and then all of a sudden something, wild could happen and your plans kind of go asunder. But that's fine for the game like this. Plays pretty quickly, relatively simple to teach, plays 2 to 5 players. So I think a good game. I wouldn't give it like an unqualified endorsement, but if you like stock games that are done with a layer of theme that sort of abstracts the stock nature of it, I would say Koinobori is a great possibility for you. Just a solid game that is an economic game and a little bit of an engine builder, very, very light engine builder, but that is dressed up in fancy garb that takes a dry topic and makes it fun and very inviting and very alluring to people who otherwise might not be interested in a stock game to play. And that is Koinobori by David Bernal and published by Devere.
Cool. I'm going to be talking about Compania. This is a level 99 game Am I right in saying that all of their games are anime themed? Is that kind of their thing
think so.
a little bit?
If not,
Who is the publisher?
Level 99?
Level 99.
Oh, yeah, almost.
Very much their thing.
Yeah.
This is another one of those. Very, very, very anime styled. The designer of this is Yog Akase, who I'm not very familiar with their prior stuff, but Compania is a worker placement, area control ish engine builder game. The way that this kind of breaks down is over 9 rounds, which ends up being fairly quick. This is a game that we were talking about is like 60 to 90 minutes long, while playing 2 to 6 players. And the reason that works as well as it does is because those rounds largely play out simultaneously. So in each of the 9 rounds, what you're going to be doing is rolling a bunch of dice behind your screen. You have a little board where you're going to be able to choose where you're allocating those dice on the main board. So the way this works is the main board has, at the start of the game, these 6 different worker placement areas. I think it's 6, whatever. It has a bunch of different worker placement areas. And those will just be kind of standard engine buildery worker placement tableau building actions, like, for example, get some green resources, get some yellow resources, draw some cards, get more dice, get more value that you can assign to your dice, because at the start of the game, you're limited on both of those aspects. Each of you only has a certain number of dice, and you only have a total and number of value that you can assign on the pips of those dice. So let's say that in any given round, I have 10 pips to assign, and 3 dice. I could put a 6 down, and a 2, and a 2. For example, in each of these areas. And that would be
bad strategy.
That would be bad strategy, exactly. Or I could split it up a little bit more evenly. But what you're effectively choosing is how many workers secretly you're going to be sending to each of those worker placement spots. The reason being that
I think of them like attacking the spaces.
Yeah, exactly. How many units you're sending to that space in the context of an area control game, right?
It's a war.
Totally. But I think it's fusing those elements, right? Because there is this element, and the reason actually any of this matters at all is only the person who has the most at that area gets to take that action. So if I sent 3, let's call them warriors for the sake of example, 3 warriors to this area, they're workers. He sent 3 workers to this area, and Kellen sends 4. Then he's effectively wasted his turn to some degree, sending 3 workers to the area, because only I get to activate that tile, actually. But the trade-off is, as the person gets to activate the tile, I lose all of my workers. Kellen's will stick around for the next round, so he gets an advantage into subsequent rounds to some extent. All of this kind of plays out in service of this tableau building game. You're getting a bunch of cards, you're getting resources, you're choosing when to play those in a phase that is largely simultaneous, so just getting your resources, activating the actions you got priority on, playing out tableau cards in order to generate money, which is victory points, right? And by the nature of this, it starts off very, very slowly. We literally got to the end of our first round, and I wasn't really able to do anything. I kind of didn't even have enough resources to play a single card. This feels like it's not going to go anywhere. But then by the time you get to round 3 and 4, you're making a ton more money than you were in round 1. And by the time you get to round 9, your engine is in full swing and you're just making stacks of money. It has a very satisfying arc to it. It has a very satisfying interaction in the way that worker placement / area control plays out, because at various points in times, you getting access to the actions you need. If you desperately, for example, need to get a resource in order to trigger part of your engine that you have, and you don't get access to that resource, that can be devastating. So figuring out what other players are going to be doing and trying to beat them towards that is the whole game. On top of that, 2 of these action spaces I described are getting more advantage in the dice game. Are you going to get more dice? Are you going to get more power that you can assign to your dice? So those trade-offs are happening constantly all the time. Are you going to get what you need to run your engine, or are you going to build power for subsequent rounds? I really like this. I think it's really, really good. I think that the biggest frustration that I think a lot of people will have, and certainly one that we ran into, is the tableau building side of this is this massive deck of cards. There is a lot of potential comboing. In fact, there's this very specific, precise comboing system built into the game where if you get a card and a corresponding card with the same symbol, you can kind of stack them together to make that card more powerful, right? If you're not getting any of those synergies going just by virtue of the cards you're drawing, that can feel really bad. And I think case in point in our game, I started the game with a combination of cards that I was able to build to great effect very quickly, whereas, other people might have not. Kellen, you also played Compania. What did you think about this?
Look, there's a lot to love. There's a lot to love with the simultaneous play, with the sort of outthinking what your opponents are going to do, and with the really light engine builder, and it's all sort of done in 90 minutes or less. Plus the cover is like super gorgeous. I don't know that the game lives up to the cover per se. I will say I found the entire reason that we talked about the hottest topic of 2026 card draw mitigation tactics last week or last whatever on the show was because of how frustrating I found Compania. You know, there are combos for buildings where buildings can get stronger, but you must have a specific building symbol. And in like rounds 2, 3, and 4, I was winning all the card draw slots trying to find an investment. Not all of them, that's like hyperbole, but winning a lot of them and not getting combo-y cards. And Nealon on like turn 2 or 3 or 4 had a really good little jolt, and everything, you know, sort of cascades from there. And I think we could have called the game 7 of 10 rounds, and I think we would have known that Nealon was going to win. And you know, that's hard to see how that'll play out in a bunch of games, but it did remind us of, you know, why other games with multiplicative elements like this, like Dark Pact, maybe a little sneaky for me to mention Dark Pact here, but Dark Pact gives you the grimoire of 3 cards, and one of those is a multiplication card because of how pertinent and important it is to this sort of arc of the game. And so, again, I'm not going to call foul play on Compania after our play of it, but did give me some pause. But I would love to do this one again. That was great.
I think that the thing that's kind of always what's hard for me to avoid with Compania is that I think everything you're saying I would absolutely agree with and fully acknowledge, and like that's in some sense undeniable. Like that is a problem with the game. But I think a game that is doing what this is doing in the amount of time that's doing, and while it's relatively rules light, like this is not a very complicated game at all, and is as interactive it is while still feeling kind of very Euro engine-y builder, it's hitting so many notes that I feel like if I could just get past this one thing, then that's fine. And who's to say, like, in the context of, like, multiple plays and all that, I don't know. But, like, it definitely did feel, like, spiky in a way that was not necessarily great. But, like I said, rules light gets in and out in, like, under 90 minutes. So, certainly a delight in that regard. That is Compania by level 99
question.
game.
Sorry, quick question. So, actually, 2 quick questions. One, you tied this game in with the inspiration for our last episode. What does the game, unless I missed it, what does the game do for card mitigation?
It doesn't. I think Kellen's point was that this was what inspired us thinking about card mitigation. Yeah, this does not really do anything. Yeah, because the way that the card draw system in this is, right, is like, here's your deck of cards. Will you win the opportunity to draw 3 cards from it? And, you know, to be fair, it's like a draw 3, discard 1 situation. So it's like the slightest amount of mitigation, but that's not enough to make up for the fact that a lot of these cards only really have like 1 or 2 cards in the deck that they quite specifically come. It reminded me of like what I don't like about Everdell, for example, where you're just like, I need the one thing that's going to combo with this card, and it's somewhere in the deck and I'm not finding it. It's that sort of a combo-y card tableau builder, where like if that deck, I think, was constructed differently, you could solve that problem.
Right.
It's like, but it's multiplicative, where it's like, if you spend this color resource, you get ×4 for every of that resource you spend or whatever, and then you can invest in that card, and it suddenly goes from ×4 to ×6 or ×8, but only if you have a matching symbol of that card. And it just felt really bad to be like symbol hunting in a game where you have such limited turns.
Because ostensibly the idea, right, is that you could be the person that invests in card draw, but to Kellen's point, he was that person and it still didn't pay off. Yeah. So it's
Gotcha. And the other quick question is, you mentioned the dice that you have that you're splitting among your workforce. Those are dice, but they're not being rolled, right? That's not
correct. No rolling of these dice. Yeah. It is just setting them to pip values and assigning them to
Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
There's some special powers of rolling the dice for...
Sure.
But that probably doesn't justify their... Yeah.
I will say, like, there is something specific about this game, which is like setting up your little dice behind your screen on this like miniature board you have, that I think is just like so satisfying. It's this element of like, reveal your screen and now this is where I'm sending my people to, you know, like it has like that flavor. Yeah, exactly. It has that flavor of like plans that you're then waiting to reveal and see like what other people did. Oh, did you go to the space I was going to go to, and all of that, which it's lovely. It's lovely.
Cool.
That is Compania by Level 99 Games and Yog Akase. Okay, Kellen, tell us about
Mood Swings.
Mood Swings.
Mood Swings. Say it together. Neelan and I had a chance to sit down and play Mood Swings. This is a... Is it a TCG? I like the terminology where they come up with new ways to say it's a TCG or not a TCG. This is a one-box, let's see what they call it, limited printing from Mark Rosewater, one of the lead designers on Magic the Gathering. It is a 45-card deck that contains 45 cards of 133 cards that make up the first set of Mood Swing cards. And everyone in your game uses the same deck to play. I want to be very upfront about this. This is like a TCG that Wizards of the Coast is publishing in 2026, when all they mostly make, or all they really make, is Magic the Gathering. I bought this game because it has the same first edition symbol on it as the Pokemon trading card game. For those who don't know, the original print run of the Pokemon trading card game was printed by Wizards of the Coast before Nintendo took it back over, and so the first set of cards had this first edition symbol on it. Mark Rosewater wrote a lovely blog about sort of wanting to bring this to the market, a simpler alternative to Magic in many ways, and a simple game, and then I saw that symbol, and I bought it. It's a very straightforward TCG, or a game where you have a hand of cards, and those cards are moods like anxiety, ambition, conviction, animosity. The art is black and white with pops of color, and on your turn, you essentially play a card, resolve a card, and then there is a scoring at the end of each turn. And you are just trying to get to, 4 points, Neelan? 3 points?
I think it was 3 points, maybe. Yeah, 3.
There's a couple of different modes and different ways to play Mood Swing, but basically each card has a power on it that sort of says, after playing this mood, choose up to 2 players. For each player, put one of their moods with an odd value back into their hand. So, a little like love letter-esque, let's say, where you play this card, it does a thing, but then you keep that card out, and that card has a die value in the top right that is your score. And at the end of each round, whoever has the highest score will win the round. There are certain cards that are modified, so that's a black die in the top right. So like this one, Determination, is 3, but it's black, and it says this mood's value is 6 if there are 3 more moods in play that share this color. So the more green cards that are out on the board, the more Determination is worth in terms of calculating your score. And the way that the game works, at a 3-player game, which is what we were playing, is everyone who does not score a point gets to draw a card in between each round, and the player who has the lowest current score value gets to take an extra turn during the next round, which keeps things quite tight. It's sort of like always on a razor's edge. In a 3-player game, we had a lot of fun because it quickly devolved into, Neelan is about to win if we don't all attack him and fight him. A very bitty game, verging on micro game, I would say, but did feel a little silly and a little fun to figure out which powers you had in your hand. I find the distribution model a little weird because there's a couple of mythic cards in each box, and I think those cards are just better than other cards, and so it's like, but you're all playing with the same deck. I don't know. Mark, Neelan, where are you at on Mood Swings?
I find, like, just to speak to the model a little bit, it is very odd, right? Because, like, the idea, I guess, is that every time you play this game, if you're playing with different friends, you play with their deck and your game is going to be slightly different, or you could buy multiple decks and pick a random deck, and that's the game of Mood Swings you're playing. Or, like, you could construct a deck, maybe? I don't know, is that part of what the intent is? I couldn't say, but, like...
Yes, dual play. Everyone brings their own deck.
But that, which is... It is still it's very weird conceptually for a game that is not strictly like I build my deck, you build my deck. Well, I guess it is, I suppose, in this mode. But yeah, if you're playing as the everyone shares a deck like multiplayer game, it's just a weird concept. But I think more than that, it is just probably about the trading card aspect of like wanting to collect the cards. Maybe that's what they're going for. But I also feel like that doesn't work as well as it does for like a Pokemon where there's like investment in the IP. So I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what their plan is. I did just discover something which I didn't realize when we were playing this, Kellen, that all of the art is actually like Magic the Gathering art. It's like they're sketches that led to Magic the Gathering art, which is neat.
Super cool.
That's a cool idea.
It's surprisingly pretty for being like sketches. Like it's certainly well made.
Definitely. Yeah, it definitely reminded me of like, this is maybe not a fair comparison because it was just the most recent example of one of these I had played, which is like Mindbug, like a small, attempting to be a Magic, small in a box type card game that is quite a lot more swingy than Magic is and is intended to just be like pick up and play. And it felt kind of bitty and fun in the same ways while also still not being exactly what I want from like a Magic the Gathering style game. So yeah, I liked it, but I didn't love it.
Yep. I think that's fair. I think it's interesting as an object, and I kind of bought into the sort of premise of it. But yeah, TCGs are weird. Man.
They are.
And that is going to do it for Mood Swings.
Let us, without any further ado, get into the meat of this episode, the Gen Con preview. We're going to go around the horn telling you what is in our top 5 most anticipated games from Gen Con. And let's start us off with Mark.
Sure. My number 5 most anticipated game is a game called Prague Unseen. This is published by Albi and designed by, and I think these are perhaps Czech names because Prague is in Czech, so I'm going to mispronounce them for sure, but Jindřich Pavlicek, Michael Pikul, and Peter Wojcik. Again, apologies for that. And I think in looking for games that I was interested in the Gen Con preview list I was looking at, something that struck me was that it seemed like quite a generally light list of games. Like a lot of the games were light card games and trick takers. In general, that's what I sort of found myself running into. So this is kind of on the other side of things. It is a kind of a heavier Euro, and it has something that I usually am not a fan of, which is like spatial puzzles, like a spatial aspect that generally isn't my jam. But one thing that did get me interested in it is the fact that it's a worker placement game, and it has this aspect to it where you're building your worker placement spots, but I think it can also use other players' spots that they've been building, and it's seems to be an area majority aspect to it. And it kind of has this, I guess, 19th century Prague look to it while adding this mythical aspects with golems and robots and stuff like that. I guess in an effort they're trying to rebuild the city. But the main crux that got to me was this idea of worker placement spot where you're actually creating your own custom worker placement spots. It seems like a pretty interesting design. And yeah, that is Prague Unseen, published by Albi.
The one thing that caught my eye in the description here is that you participate in 4 distinct mini games as part of this, which is an aspect of, let's call it like kitchen sinky type of Euro game that I actually can really, really like. So, yeah, this looks cool. This one hadn't crossed my path. Okay, my number 5 game. It's funny because like one thing I actually also wanted to say during your segment, Mark, was talking about like the trend towards smaller games. Yeah. I wonder if this is a general industry sentiment, because it's definitely been a sentiment for myself, and I think it's something we've spoken about a little bit, of just kind of being like a little bit exhausted by really long, heavy games these days. So
did you, in researching this list, did you guys find the same thing, like the games tend to be?
I agree. Side? No, absolutely. Okay. Usually like your chock-a-block with like big heavy Euro games. There were a couple, and to be fair, there were some I didn't include in my list. Like I think we both had Entropy on our short list, for example, but it didn't make the cut. But in like big contrast to that, my number 5 game, and I usually put a smaller game at the spot on the list, but this is Triangulation, a very simple word game that kind of struck me as a very streamlined crosstalk. It's a very, very simple premise. Like I could describe this in like 10 seconds, which is that you have a word that you're trying to get your team to guess. Tell me if this sounds familiar.
Oh, he's doing it.
I'm doing it.
He's not done.
You're going to give them 3 clues, except after the first and the second clue, the other team gets to guess first, right?
Okay. Yep.
So it's about what series of clues can you set up so that the third clue is the key to unlock the whole thing, And I love that idea. That sort of that cross-talky kind of, you're trying to deceive, and now here's the secret word that's going to get you all the way to the end.
What's the name of this?
Triangulation. Very simple idea. I love it.
The try stands for 3.
The try does stand for 3. That is correct. That is my number 5 game, Triangulation.
It's kind of like, I feel like Peter C. Hayward has like 17 games in this list.
Yes, he does seem to be on a roll right now.
He's everywhere. He's got his things in the rings, and his things, are they on the rings?
What's
What's the other one? No, they're not rings anymore, right? He has another. The line has continued.
Yeah, there's another
on.
things
Things
game. I forget what
on
it is.
strings.
Things on strings. That's the one.
Things on
And
strings.
also for those that don't know, Peter C. Hayward of Rolling Deep that I was talking about, I think last week. So yeah, definitely very in vogue right now.
I feel like there's got to be at least one more in this mythos, that the lore sort of expands outward. There's some good stuff. I would say that my take on this list or on these games is that mechanically, we've run out of juice. Juice is out. We're out of juice, and we are remaking and redoing. And I have multiple remakes and redos, so I am the problem. Blame me, the consumer. The fifth game that I'm most excited about at Gen Con is called All Mine! And this has some lovely I'm in a mine with wizards artwork, but it is a trick-taking game. It is published by Capstone. It is a re-implementation of Shoten. I never know how to say this. This is a game that we've covered on the podcast. It was a very difficult-to-get trick-taking game that is well-beloved, where you are trying to bid on the amount of tricks that you will get the least of and then the most of. And if you are correct with your bid, you score points. But everyone can see all of the colors of your cards because the card backs are suited. And there are, I believe, trumps and super trump cards within each suit. So it's kind of a lot going on, but also simple enough. This is like, I would say, a hidden gem. Well, there's no hidden gems in the trick-taking world because these people will not shut the up about their trick-takers. But All Mine, very excited for this to be back in print, something that I can buy. Cover looks good. I'm excited to pick it up. All Mine, my number 5. Mark, you've played Shoten. It seems like you're about to cuss. You're on the cusp of it. I believe you have played this with me, but I could be mistaken. Do you recognize the old box, Mark Nealon?
I did look at it, and
sure.
I was like, it's very possible that I played this, but I couldn't tell you either way.
I think the first time I played the OG was actually a proxy copy that someone made. So it was hard to get for a while.
Oh, yes. I definitely played this. I think we played this at my place during Dice Tower West. Did Sheha bring this? Yeah, I played Sheha.
I mean, if it's a trick taker, right? He knows how to shut the hell up, but most trick taker players don't. So yeah, that makes sense. My number 5, All Mine. It is a good one. So very excited to see this back.
My number 4 is Hell of a Deal. This is designed by Cameron Reed and published by Smirk and Dagger Games. Didn't they change their name to like Smile and Laughter or something?
They were doing
I think that was
both
an
at one
imprint,
point.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So this is I guess you'd call this like a roguelike, to use a video game phrase, a cooperative roguelike card game that has the Cuphead sort of art, but plays like Balatro. That's that poker game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this is what this is sort of piggybacking off of. This is a cooperative game where you're playing different bosses at Texas Hold'em style poker, but each boss will do something, I guess, to cheat. They'll break the rules in some way, and you are going to have to get stronger and stronger, acquire more powers, acquire better cards to beat them and to get a stronger hand of cards or whatever, or available actions as you try to get through the different levels of bosses. I've played a little bit of Balatro, so even my little amount of play of that video game certainly reverberated when I read about this one. But it also kind of reminded me of another solo, again, this is cooperative, but the Ace of Spades, that game that came out, I think, last year, which is a solo game, but has the same sort of thing where you're fighting harder and harder bosses, and you have to kind of acquire different abilities in order to even have a chance at the later levels. And this seems to have a pretty cool production. I kind of like the idea of using...
You like Ace of Spades?
I do not like Ace of Spades, especially not the art. I want to make that very much clear.
I'm reading about it right now on jimcrowmuseum.com.
Okay, well, I don't know why they'd be reviewing a card game there, but back to Hell of a Deal, which has nothing
That's
to
not
do
a
with...
joke, by the way. Sorry. If I'm going to make the bad joke, this game had some very racist depictions. They're re-releasing it. I think the non-racist version is coming out soon.
I generally don't go for cooperative games, but I like the idea of being able to teach this to people just by saying, hey, do you know Texas Hold'em? Well, let's try this. And, we're playing together, so don't really worry about the rules or whatever. We'll get through it. And so, just, it's not something that hasn't ever been done before, obviously. Like there was, what is it called? The Gang.
I was going to say, The Gang is another cooperative poker game.
Yeah, but this is like This is like a cooperative boss battle.
Sure.
More and more powerful.
Different, but yeah.
So that's a hell of a deal by Smirk and Dagger and designed by Cameron Reed.
Okay, my number 4 game is Night at the Zoo. I believe this is published by Albi, but I believe it's going to be brought by Capstone to Gen Con. I could be wrong about that. But this is designed by Tomas Holek, who is, earlier to our point, the designer of SETI, a very, very heavy Euro game, instead making a very, very light little game. Yeah, so this is a half-hour game of trying to get animals into your zoo or free them. I'm not entirely sure what they're trying to go for thematically, but it was very reminiscent, at least in the description, of Fast Sloths, where in every game you're going to have like a subset of the animals in your game, and each of those animals has different movement rules. On your turn, you're going to like play a tile to like move some of these animals around the board in order to get them into the zoo on your turn. So there's this element of kind of like puzzle path laying, manipulating with each of these animals' movements in order to line up these paths to get these animals out on your turn. It just seems like a really lovely idea, like a lovely, simple, puzzly idea on a shared board, which obviously tends to make it fairly interactive. I adore Fast Sloths as a premise. It is maybe just like a little bit too big and too cumbersome to like break out as often as I'd like. So like a very streamlined, pared down version of the similar sort of idea is very much up my alley. And I think it also looks gorgeous. Like great use of color. I love the animal art in this. It's a lovely looking game. That is Night at the Zoo.
Fast Sloth is also incredibly hard to get your hands on as well. So
I'm very glad I held onto my copy then.
Yeah.
My number 4 game is another re-implementation, and it won't be the last one on this list, okay? It's the story of re-implementations. Look, I'm not above it. I am puns. Well, maybe this is a pun, so maybe I should learn what a pun is before I say I won't play games with puns in the titles anymore. This is Reiner Knizia. This is Reiner Knizia saying, I have a better version of Pit. Okay? Pit, a great game. Can we agree? Do we agree on that?
Absolutely.
A game where we yell at each other from 1903. Okay? Could be designed by Sid Sackson, but it's not because it's before his time. But it could be. Stonk Market. It's basically any old designer to me is Sid Sackson. That's the joke. This is Reiner Knizia's take on a stock market game. It is called Stonk Market, and the art is very meme-ified, which, look, I'm not above it. You know what I mean? I have been on 4chan, okay? Back in the day, I was on Reddit. I was on Dig. I was on Dig before V4, before we migrated to Reddit, okay? So I can hang with the foul bachelor frogs and the memes. Here we are in Stock Market. Stock Market's not a pun. I don't know the origin of
no, I think it's
calling
just
stocks stonk.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that.
It's obnoxious.
Yeah, it's just like internet wordage.
Everyone knows that the lines go up. Will you be less with the most valuable stocks? This is good. Real-time trading game where you YOLO into company stocks. I love it. I love Reiner Knizia. Respect. Apparently, Cole Worley likes this game. Respect. Respect to Cole Worley. Respect to Stonk Market. My 4th most excited, anticipated game of Gen Con. And it's a shame, Mark, that you don't have this on your list.
Oh, you know what? I was going to say, it's interesting because when you started describing this game, I'm like, that sounds a lot like Weedle. And sure enough,
it is Weedle.
It is Weedle. Okay, yes. Yeah, I've played Weedle before, and it was presented to me by my friend Cameron, who taught it to me, as a gamer's version of Pit, designed by Knizia. And yeah, I'm glad to see that this is being re-implemented, because Weedle is like a terrible looking game, although it's a really good game to play. So I'm glad it's getting a artistic sort of makeover here. Weedle is very good. Weedle is very, very good.
I'm upset that we are not at Gen Con, because what I will say is all play should fly us to Gen Con, because the Board Game Barrage, all 4 of us playing this game, would draw the crowd. The crowd would be drawn. You know
Undeniable.
what I mean?
Undeniable.
People are playing their Euro games, and we are screaming at each other.
That's right.
And that is what I feel like we could bring to Stonk Market, and that's got to be worth some flights to Indianapolis. It's not that far away.
Stonk Market would be flying off the shelves.
If you're listening,
that's
right, Knizia, get us there.
Do something about it. Do something. I dare you.
They keep saying, bring him on the pod, which we can't do for ethical reasons, but we can sing his praises. I don't know why you're laughing, but we're not above begging all play to fly us to Gen Con. But
and just to be clear, the ethical reasons are we don't want our opinions to be questioned.
So don't tell them.
Not because Mr. Knizia has done anything ethically, even potentially questionable. It's not that.
That's saying a lot coming from Mr. Ace of Spades over there.
All right. My number 3 game comes from 25th Century Games. This is designed by Mike Belsole and Grace Kendall. This is another light game. This is Bullseye. So Bullseye reminded me a lot of Just One. The way this works is there's going to be a clue guesser. They're going to have a couple of topics they can choose from. They are going to select one of the topics, let's say movies, for example. The topic's going to be movies, and then somebody's going to write down a movie. So they'll know the topic, but they won't know the actual movie. So somebody might write Jaws. And so you're trying to get the clue guesser to guess Jaws. In this case, all they know is that it's a movie. And the way it works is each person trying to get them to guess is going to have a little dry erase thing in front of them, and they're going to write a single letter. So let's say I'm trying to get them to guess Jaws, and I'm going to write S for shark. And Neelan's going to write D for Dreyfus or whatever. And everybody's going to write down the first letter of their clue. And then we're going to reveal the letters. The clue guesser is going to look, and they're going to see an S and a D and whatever, and they might be able to guess it, like, okay, movie, I see S, shark. But more likely than not, my assumption is they're not going to get it based on that. And then they close their eyes again, and then everybody passes their clue board, one person to the left or to the right, or whatever. You pass it over to your neighbor. And then your neighbor, not knowing what your intention was for that S or for that D or whatever that was, writes the next letter. So maybe I get the S from Neelan, and I was like, why would he write S? Maybe he meant like sand or whatever because it's a beach, and I write the A, and somebody gets the D I wrote and writes something else. And so then the person looks up, reveals it, and as they get more and more letters, obviously it's, wackier and wackier because who knows what words start to get formed. And with more letters, the clue guesser or the team as a whole gets less and less points, so you want them to guess it early. I can see this being a hit. I can also see it flopping, but it sounded like an interesting idea, an interesting take on a game that I've seen iterated upon a lot, that game being, of course, Just One. But I'm always, this is going to be really quick, going to be a party game. Again, could be a hit, could be one of these games where people are laughing and groaning about what people have done. So yeah, I'm interested to see how it works out in practice. That is Bullseye.
Okay. I have to stop the presses here. I thought Neelan had done us dirty yet again, and his duties of this list, which is making sure we don't have crossover. My number 2 game sounds exactly like what you're describing, maybe without a board. This is coming to us from All Play, Jibber Jabble.
Yes. Okay.
And this is also described as Just One, but you're spelling words with other people cooperatively to try to get people to guess a word, but the clue can kind of veer off in the wrong way because you're spelling it letter by letter.
Well,
almost identical.
Insider wereword situation here where someone stole from the other.
Well, I will say that I don't know if Jibber Jabble comes with any dry erase markers or like these arrow looking things where you're writing on these arrows and you have a bullseye, and it's like, I would say, extremely thematic. I don't know if Jibber Jabble will hold up to that.
Okay, here's what I'll say. Mine is better, okay? I do like to find games that are re-implementations that were published like super recently. So like what happens is this game got published in 2024 at a self-published thing, and then All Play is like, no, we're going to redo this in 2026. That is a sign of invest. See what I'm saying?
Sure.
And there, ergo, your Bullseye's got nothing on my Jibber Jabber.
That is weird. Crazy.
Yeah, we're going to have to play both back to back, though that's sad. Oh, and I must correct the record, as I have been chastised by my compatriots, my Japanese compatriots online. This Jibber Jabber, illustrated by Sai Beppu, again, can't pronounce it, so there's another way to chastise me, is a woman. And I should know that, and I apologize. And here we are. But has crazy illustrations. I don't know that the Jibber Jabber illustration kind of scares me.
Yeah, that cover is upsetting.
It says, not your grandma's word game on it. I don't know what to think about that.
It's so funny that you were talking about how so many of the games that you were looking at seem to be remakes of previous games. And here we have a remake of a game by another game coming out at the same time. It's like, it's not even taking like a full cycle to re-implement games. The games are being re-implemented in real time by other games.
Yeah, these people have no honor. That is my number 2, spoken out of turn.
Yeah, I guess.
Is it now my turn or is it your turn?
I don't know. Yeah, we'll have to figure out how we deal with that when we get back to you.
Oh, no.
But we'll get there.
Okay.
My number 3 is Lord of the Rings: Circle of Conflict. Of
course it is.
Of course it is. Like, look, I couldn't resist having a Lord of the Rings game, but also, like, tell me which part of this you think appealed to me, right? Imagine War of the Ring as a roll and write that you play simultaneously in a big group with the person to your left and your person to your right. It's just
Sounds
me.
like a Kellen game.
It was made for me. Yeah, exactly. It's a Kellen game. But yeah, the
then
premise...
Sam and Frodo make out at the end.
The premise here is that every player in a game, like let's say you're playing a 5-player game and sat in a circle, every player of the game is playing both on their roll and write sheet, a shadow game with the player on their left and a free people, I might have this backwards, but and a free people game with a person on their right. So there's all these wars happening between every pair of people at the table, right? And those games are, I have to say, like very War of the Ring reminiscent, where like there's a combination of, are you doing the battling part of this? Are you pushing against your enemy's strongholds? Or are you doing the sneaky, trying to get the hobbits to Mordor part of the game? So those two elements are in conflict with the player to your left, with your player right, just on opposite sides of that force. It does seem like a heavier roll and write, which is always something that is at least a little bit appealing to me. Lost its luster a little bit on the last few batches of heavy roll and writes, but I'm back in on this theme and this idea. So yeah, this is just a really interesting, intriguing mishmash of ideas that just is kind of laser focused to appeal to me. That is Lord of the Rings, Circle of Conflict.
My number 2, back to the heavy stuff. This is coming to us from Mind Clash Games and designer Alan Kirkby. This is Revenant. It takes place in the Voidfall universe, that rich tapestry of backstory. This is, as like Mind Clash games tend to be, quite a heavy, complex game. I feel like, without really thinking about it too much, that Mind Clash, whereas they were almost batting 1,000 early on, have been a little bit hit or miss recently, and maybe I'd be proven wrong if I thought about it more. But this seems interesting because it has that complexity. It
playing a little more like Egypt.
That's true. Unfortunately, sadly, that's sad but true. So this has heavy Euro aspects to it, which I've kind of been down on in general, but I'm not averse to. Especially, I feel like Mind Clash games generally do those in interesting ways, do those like Euro staples in interesting ways. But the thing that's got me interested about this is that there seems to be like a shifting alliances, hidden influence thing where you are secretly behind one group or one faction and you're trying to cause casualties or influence armies of one faction while trying to hide that. And so I like the idea of that there's sort of like a shifting alliances, maybe diplomacy-esque flavor to this, while also being hopefully one of Mind Clash's better, if in return to form, complicated, sort of heavy Euro-esque kind of games. I think Mind Clash in general, their games don't tend to be like Euro-y Euros. You think of Anachrony or Tricarion. They tend to be interesting even if they are heavy Euros, and hopefully this will be more of the same. So I'm excited for what Revenant might have to offer, especially with, again, the hidden alliances sort of thing.
Have you played Voidfall, by the way, Mark?
I have not played Voidfall. So I only know the universe by its reputation, not by any personal experience. Did you like it? Have you played it?
No, I haven't. I was curious to ask because, yeah, I've heard very good things, but it is just in that realm of very heavy, very long Euro game. But
sure.
I know people really like it solo, actually, for what it's worth.
My number 3 game is a game that came out on Kickstarter, looks like last year, and is now at Gen Con. It's called FaeKin. This is a social deduction game. This is a very light social deduction game where you're discovering what team you are on by looking at the cards that you were dealt, and you're trying to murder. I mean, it's not murder, but it's murder. The opposing team's captain while figuring out who the heir is to your team. It's a little like coup-like as you're taking turns trying to learn information about the other cards in front of people, and then an accusation happens. Surprisingly good reviews for a social deduction game from sort of not a known entity, and the art is really pretty. I'm just in my I need the simple game era and, yearn for when we had 6 to 10 people just hanging out at a house and having the most fun kind of party. And this just feels like something that we would play, something that we would like, maybe something that we play 10 or 15 times and then move on. But like, that's totally fine for what it is. I will happily pick this up. And I'm excited to give it a go. And I think, Neelan, I think you'd like this.
Yeah, I'm looking at this.
Through it.
Absolutely. It's stunning art as well.
100%.
Cool. Yeah, that's one I want to keep on my list for sure. Okay, my number 2 most anticipated game is Mythologies. I have to admit there is not a English rulebook for this yet, so I don't know a whole lot about how it actually plays. But a lot of it, like the byline for this, is like very much my jam. This is a civilization themed game, but with with a bunch of different cultures from around the world, mixed with the mythologies of those cultures. So like it's already a theme that I'm sort of very into. And the premise of the game is that it is a half-hour card drafting combo building game, which is already just... I love the premise. I love card drafting as a mechanic. I love simple, fast card drafting games, and one that kind of gets to the heart of kind of just building powerful combos around like a theme that I really, really love. This seems awesome to me.
My number one most anticipated game is another heavy one, but actually maybe not so heavy. This is World Order, published by Hegemonic Project Games, designed by Vangelis Bagatarkis and Varnvas Timothu. I'm sure I've also mispronounced those. But those are the designers, and that is the publisher of Hegemony. So this is appealing to me because of what appealed to me initially about Hegemony. That was a game about different classes in a society sort of struggling for supremacy or struggling for balance, maybe is a better way of putting it. This feels like the same kind of idea, but instead of social classes or working classes, this is about nations trying to establish a world order in, I guess this takes place around 2010. So the game describes it as like the beginning of the waning of the United States and perhaps other powers challenging the US for world dominance. So you got me on the theme alone when you have like this like world nation battle political thing. This doesn't seem like a Risk-esque sort of game where you're sort of like fighting on the board. This is more about politics and maneuvering and stuff like that. But the thing that I liked about this is that it seems to be doing what Hegemony did, where you have like different factions playing asymmetrically, which is generally a thing I don't really like because it makes the overhead kind of balloon in a lot of cases where you have to teach each person their different faction separately and they're playing differently. I think Hegemony wasn't that bad on that front. Like everybody's basically playing the same game with some exceptions. But I guess my understanding is World Order takes that a step further where they are trying to streamline the asymmetry. So there's still going to be asymmetry, but it's supposed to be less sharp and making it like a much smoother teach. I guess that is the goal, to make the game more approachable. So give me a game that is set in like a world of political intrigue where the getting into the table will be easier, but yet you feel like you're doing this thing where it has an epic sort of theme to it. You've got my attention. So that is World Order, published by Hegemonic Project Games.
All right. Continuing the theme, and that theme being it's a redo of another game. There is a redo of a game by William Attia. Mark, who's William Attia?
I have pictures of brown old games in my head, but I'm not sure which one he would be most famous for. Give me the first letter.
C?
C. I do not know.
Bigger than you think.
Bigger than I think. Constantinople? I don't know. No, I don't know.
Kalos, bro.
Of course.
I don't know if it's bigger than you think.
Sure.
Anyway, okay. My reaction to this game and seeing the reimplementation, this game is called Greylune. Grey spelled with an E. Is that British, Neil?
It is British.
And Lune, Lune. This is a remake, a redo, a reimplementation of Spirium, or Spirium. Have you played this?
I've played Spirium, yeah.
And Spirium has the storied history for me of being the game that was available for discounted prices at every board game website for like $6 to $8 for like 10 years.
100%.
It was not 10 years, but it was always available and it was always cheap.
Yep.
When this game came out, back in 2013, I think it was seen as sort of like a low to medium interactive game. And I think in the year 2026, it's going to be received as like a very high interactive game. It uses what's called a Dutch priority auction. I promise I had to look this up. I am not that nerdy. I just help run a board game podcast where you are bidding on cards and then you're deciding when to move to the next phase. And then when you move to that next phase, everyone who has bid on that space, the price is how much people have bid. So if 5 people have placed their workers there to then get that card, you must pay $5. or you can take your worker back to exchange it for just money, and that lowers the price of the person who will then activate that card. So this is a really interconnected auction system that kind of reminds me of Keyflower, which is one of my favorite Euro games of all time. And it sort of has that feeling where you're putting workers down, but you may not use them for what you put them down for. And I remember liking, almost loving this game, but it was also steampunk themed.
Yes, unfortunately.
So Greylune, has a dragon on the cover, okay? So we upgraded. It looks great. I really like how they're marketing this. It's an advanced Euro game, 2-hour max playtime, competitive price, really good production. And so, again, I love so much of the core of that. You've got the designer pedigree of Kalis. I'm all in on this. I would love to play this. This feels like something we would like at the sort of right length for us in this day and age, now that we are so very old.
It's so funny because as soon as you said Spirium, like my initial immediate strong reaction was like, that was the game that you could get for nothing from so many places. And yet it was like, it had this reputation of like being dirt cheap. Like people were giving it away. And yet it was like a good game. Like it was, nobody said this is like junk because it's a bad game. It's just, maybe they overproduced it or something, or I don't know what, but it was dirt cheap, and yet everybody said like this is actually pretty interesting. And so I'm very interested in trying this out. It was, besides it being steampunk, which is, as I've said, my least favorite theme of any type of board game theme, the original Spirium was really, really drab looking. So
and I think had that iconography. I think there was a lot of stuff going against it, but maybe they were sort of like banking on the sort of Kalis, the designers sort of lauded. So super fun to see this one back. And like, this is the kind of thing where, if we can get these games that are solid, like that's ranked 7, get these 7s and then get them into the 8s in terms of like how good it is. Like, man, that's what I want. You know what I mean? Like, why go through the trouble of trying 700 new board games when we know Spirium is like almost there? You know what I mean? And with more accessibility or like a light tightening, here we are. Greylune, the British spelling of Grey. There we have it. Nealon confirmed. What is a Greylune, Nealon?
Couldn't tell you.
Oh, it's
like
a city.
Greylune spelled with an A, but English.
It's like a black loon, but a little lighter.
Dear God. That is my number one most anticipated game of Gen Con 2026.
My number one most anticipated game is Core of Discovery Duo. Core of Discovery, a game set in the world of Manifest Destiny, was my favorite game from last year, and a game I pretty much only played solo, like ostensibly could be played as a 2-player game. But anyway, Core of Discovery Duo is a re-implementation to some extent. But like, one of the things that's a little bit hard to tell by this, it doesn't seem like it is quite the same game, but it is certainly the similar type of game where what you're trying to do is build out a map together with your duo partner in this, except that involves playing self cards, which is on the surface very, very different from how Core of Discovery works, but it seems to be maintaining that idea of this deduction puzzle that you're kind of solving together, and how the map is laid out is part of how that works. There is an element of the sort of cryptid style of deduction where you each have a sort of subset of rules, and you have access to some, your partner has access to the other, and like you're going to play a card and like try to test whether it's in defiance of your partner's rules. If the partner says, nope, that doesn't work there, they could tell you, but they can't communicate exactly what their rule is. There's like a limited communication component to this. It's a sort of cooperative 2-player puzzle game that I sort of really, really like, and it seems to, at the very least, have a core of the game that I really, really adored in Core of Discovery. So very excited for Core of Discovery Duo.
And to be clear, Nealon was saying a core, C-O-R-E, in core, C-O-R-P-S.
There we go. Yeah, there's the unintentional pun that barely works in audio form. That is our lists of 15, maybe 14 and a half games.
I think we got to 15.
How Jibber Jabber turns out.
Yeah. Jibber Jabble.
Jibber Jabble. I'm so sorry. But yeah, thank you for listening. Please, if you go to Gen Con and you play any of these games, tell us what you think about them. And if you discover any other hidden gems that are not ones we mentioned or ones we may not have heard of, please let us know in the Discord. That is at boardgamebarrage.com/Discord. Thank you as always to Heart Society for our intro music, What's in Your Mind, Kid. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye.